So, does anybody have anything they'd like to ask about the book? Any questions? Anything they'd like to share? Hello,
I I
Megan.
could
Welcome
like
back.
I could like to say something, Andrew. So I'm in the pressure of stopping all at once part, but I found very interesting the stories that you put in the book on how to stop, because sometimes while I read the book, it's kind of difficult for me to find real world examples. So by you putting those examples, I found real concrete applicable examples on how to stop actually. So it was very beneficial to me. Just that comment.
Which example helped the most?
So for instance, the example of this girl justifying the when she wanted to spend some money buying stuff, that she was having some guilt, and everyone was, hey, why did you do that? What did let me Yeah, the first example, when Sally's talking with her family about finances, and he is becoming defensive and justify why she should be spending her money, and then she decides to just not justify it and just stop. So
This
it's
might
page
be.
number 294.
Thanks. Hopefully, in a future edition, we're going to get like an index so I can know where everything is. Um, Example one, Sally.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so this is in the chapter Just Stop. Examples of stopping. This seems to be a theme with clients. Things are coming up this week around stopping. Um, so there's a whole chapter I wrote called Just Stop, and I've had clients for that would come on for a few weeks or a few months or a few years, and still not get what stopping is. Um, it took me years for me to know not only what it was, but to actually do it. So this was example one that Mauricio was talking about. Sally is talking with her family about finances. She becomes aware she's starting to get defensive about her purchases and justifying why she should be allowed to spend her money. So she stops talking. She pauses, goes inside, and feels into what this is about. After a few moments, she recognized this is the behavior her mother did when her father interrogated her after going shopping. Sally chooses not to continue this story and stops. The fears of being attacked, ridiculed, and shame arise. She allows them. She feels the sadness of self-betrayal from having to justify her needs and wants. She spends a few moments to sit with it without having to rush past it. Sally then re-engages with her family and is now aware of how her sibling was baiting her into getting defensive. She no longer engages in the manipulation or justifies, kindly saying no to their inquiries of spending habits. So, this is packed full of stuff. Let's dissect some of this. In these examples that I write in the book, and I'll give you a little secret. A little secret. So most people miss these things. that in the examples, it's all in there. Like I'm teaching in the examples, and in my stories, I'm teaching in my stories. So in Dragons and Their Treasures, you guys are here on this call. You get a little that's not a secret. It's just most people don't have a clue that's what's happening. Okay, let's share this too. This is in Dragons and Their Treasures on the Shadow Work. When you come across a dragon on your path and choose to face it instead of flee. All right, let's start over. When you come across a dragon on your path and choose to face it instead of fleeing, it will stop trying to eat you. If you can look it straight in the eye, your dragon will submit and reveal the map to your treasure chest. Do not attack or falter, or else it will devour you with ferocious hunger. This map is full of instructions and information, and what it reveals may startle you. It directs you to the forbidden cavern within, which you must enter of your own free will. Sound familiar, the rune from today? You must navigate the labyrinth and sail past the sirens. You must destroy the gatekeepers as you reach the inner sanctum. It warns you of the last trap, where most fail. It says that instead of taking the steps upwards towards the sparkling gems, you must jump into the infinitely dark abyss below. Sound familiar, Hannah? The map further reveals that after doing so, there will be a time of total darkness. But do not waver in your faith. It assures you that soon you will arrive at the other side, and your vision will return. It is here that you will find the treasure which once had been discarded and locked away. So, the secret in that is that it's the A5 process. It tells you exactly how to do the work. It tells you exactly how to do the shadow work. You come across a dragon, choose, face, instead of fleeing. That got me twice. Instead of fleeing, right? Avoidance, right? Not avoiding it. It will stop trying to eat you, right? Look it straight in the eye, right? Become aware, right? You look at it, acknowledge it. Revealing a map, right? Resources, it'll teach you. It'll tell you exactly what to do when you look at these things. Treasure chest, right? Do not attack or falter, right? Do not get defensive, right? Because defense is the opposite of attack. And if you're defensive, you're either being attacked, attacking yourself, perceiving an attack. There is an attack being generated somehow. Or falter, right? If you look away, if you start trying to understand, if you start second guessing, all of these kind of things, it will devour you with ferocious hunger, right? It'll come back. If you only go halfway into this work, it's going to get worse because you're just going to be in the shadow, and all of those things are just going to devour you, right? This map is full of instructions and information, right? The feeling, right? You go into the feeling, you face the stories, you go into it, it's going to reveal these things. What it reveals may startle you. All right, you're going to find out stuff that may be disturbing, that you may not like to hear. It directs you to the forbidden cavern within, right? The place that you do not want to go. The stories that people say you should not go there. Stay in the village. Which you must enter of your own free will. Right? This is all about choice. You do not have to do any of this. It is okay if you do. It is okay if you don't. You must choose this. You can't take your spouse or your child. Well, maybe. I mean, I guess you can't legally, technically, but really, you can't take anybody and force them to go to therapy and have it be effective. I mean, you can drag them along, but it has to be of their own choice. To get somebody to make a new choice, it has to be their choice. We all know these experiences where we, want mom or dad to go and do the thing, or our spouse, and they're not interested, and so it doesn't matter. And if you're forced to do something, right, you're not going to get the lesson. Or if someone tries to rescue you, that's your power being taken away. And then you just apply all of this in reverse, right? You invert all of this, and you just also see how to treat other people. You must navigate the labyrinth and sail past the sirens, right? All the people around you that say, no, this is bad. Who do you think you are? You stay here where everything's fine. Don't go into the darkness. We don't like this new you, right? All of these things. The labyrinth, right? It's a maze. You're within yourself discovering these things. You must destroy the gatekeepers as you reach the inner sanctum, right? These are the thresholds. This is penetrating. You penetrate the stories. You stop and let go of the voices of the people, all of the stories. The inner sanctum. It's inside. It's not outside. It warns you of the last trap where most fail. That it says instead of taking the steps upwards to the sparkling gems, right? Ascension, right? These whole things of ascension, 20D, right? All of these things that are above you, outside of you, making millions of dollars, being super successful in the material world with the seductions and the addictions and losing yourself in the sparkly object syndrome. Again, not that the material world is bad. It's losing yourself. It's being captivated. It's being seduced. It's being pulled in and losing yourself. You must jump into the infinitely dark abyss below, right? The shadow. It's below. It's down. It's inside. It's not up and out. It's within. You must jump, right? It's a jump. It's a leap of faith. That's what a jump is, a leap of faith. And it's going to feel infinite. It's going to feel never ending. It's going to be dark. It's going to feel like the abyss. The map further reveals that after doing so, there will be a time of total darkness. You're in it. You're diving into the abyss. It's dark. There's nothing there. This is the belly of the whale. Dark night of the soul. But do not waver in your faith. When you are this far in the process and you start doubting and wanting to turn back and run away, that's gonna spell bad news. You're falling, you're free falling. There's no going back up. And so fighting it, doubting it, that is not the time to defend and avoid and run away. That's the time to surrender and to trust. It's a process of trusting. Faith. It assures you that soon you will arrive on the other side and your vision will return. When we're in the depths of the shadow work, when we are free falling and feeling annihilating, there's nothing else. Outside, inside. That moment of pain, of grief, of sorrow, of sadness, of shame, of guilt, of fear, of terror, of loneliness, of despair, of hopelessness. We feel like it's a never-ending abyss, but we have to have faith. We have to trust that on the other side of it, we will see again. It is here that you will find the treasure which had once been discarded and locked away. You will gain access to these resources. Right? It will inform you. So, that's one paragraph in the book. Now, if you do that same thing that I just did for every paragraph in the book, you're going to have a masterclass on this. That's how dense all of this stuff is. That is how I wrote it. I wrote it embedding, entraining, encoding all of what I just said, plus more, into these sentences, into paragraphs like that. If you can go through the book and read it that way, you're going to find so much. If you do that with your own shadow material, you're going to find so much. So, back to stopping. Example 1. Sally is talking with her family about finances. All right, being in the world. You're not a monk up in the mountain. You're with your family, with people you care about, that know you. She's become aware she's starting to get defensive about her purchases. She becomes aware. Here we go again. Awareness. You have to have this awareness, or else nothing can change. This is why feedback is so important. If you do not know this is even happening, if you do not have the awareness, nothing else matters. It's the equivalent of showing up. You have to show up. If you don't show up, nothing can change. Starting to get defensive. She's being triggered. She's being activated. She feels under attack. Something is being turned on. So she gets defensive. So she's reacting to something. Remember, the truth requires no defense. So if you're defending, what you're hearing either is not the truth, or an attack, or something like. Wait, I got lost in that. Hold on. The truth requires no defense. So, if it's the truth, then you don't need to defend anything. If you're feeling defensive, something there is not true. It could be in what the other person's saying or doing, or yourself. So that can be a slippery slope if people want to start using this to stay stuck. Someone will say, oh, I'm getting defensive. Oh, that must mean you're lying. You're attacking me. Could be. Or it could be that you're lying. There's a distortion. There's something untrue that you're perceiving or projecting. And that's why you're getting defensive. Because if it's true, you don't need to defend it. Remember, all feedback is love. The truth is love. Why defend against love? Many reasons. Many of you know. All right. And justifying, right? So when we defend, we start justifying. We have to explain. We're defending. We're protecting ourselves. All justification is defense. Agreeing and disagreeing is defending. It's not listening. It's not letting the information in. So when I'm working with people and they just start defending and justifying why they did what it is, when I'm giving them feedback about their movement, they're not listening. They're not taking it in. They're defending something. They're protecting something. They're not listening. The feedback is not going in, and so they're keeping the love and the data out. Something in that equation is not true. Pretty sure it's not my feedback that is a lie. It's almost always the stories that we have in our head, right? The stories, justifications, the distortions, the filters. This is why the video is so important in cinesomatics. That's why a facilitator that's done the work is very important. Because if you can't trust that the video and your facilitator is giving you accurate feedback, that doubt is going to waver, right? Back in the shadow work, it's going to cause you to waver and lose faith. Because then you can just say, oh, that's you know, I get people that come in on the assessments and they say, oh, that's just your opinion, right? That's just how you're interpreting it. It's like, well, every client that has success with me doesn't see it that way. They trust that what I'm saying is true. And the people that say that are people that do weasel language. Right? It's weasel language. It's just an easy way out. Oh, that's just your opinion. Tell that to the video. Tell that to your body. Tell that to the 5 other people in the group that are all seeing this. So lots and lots of levels here. So she stops talking, right? Stops. She just stops talking. She doesn't justify more. She doesn't try to explain. She doesn't try to understand. She stops talking, just in the middle of a sentence. I do this. If I'm starting to talk and I'm like, oh, that's bullshit, I just that's bullshit, and I just stop. Or if I see a pattern coming, I'll stop. It's not always easy. Nothing I'm saying is necessarily easy. And nothing I'm perfect with at all with it. All of the realizations in here came from me failing at this like thousands of times. It's like, oh, this is what I think stopping is. And then I do what I think stopping is, and then it doesn't work. It's like, oh, because I'm doing something more, right? I'm doing definition A. I'm plugging up. I'm suppressing myself rather than stopping the suffering, stopping the story. She pauses, goes inside, right? Take a pause. Pattern interrupt. Does something different. Instead of keep defending and talking, she does something different. She goes inside, right? It's not about the external world. She's being triggered. It's in here. She's defensive. And feels into what this is about. She doesn't contemplate and try to understand and think about all their past lives. She goes inside and feels. She feels into it. She doesn't feel on top of it and react to it. She feels into it. She feels into what this is about, aka the story. This is where so many people get caught up in that word. Into. They miss the into. They look at it. They're up here looking down at the emotion and saying, oh, well, that fucking sucks. And then they react to it. And then so what happens is they're reacting to what they're looking at rather than going into and feeling. They both result in an emotional response, but one's a reaction to the feeling and story, and the other one is actually feeling it. Do you understand that distinction? Yes? No? One person, 2 people? Okay. All right. And what this is about. Story, right? It's not just I'm triggered and mad, and that's it. What is it about? And you're not contemplating for 10 minutes. When you can feel into the feeling, it reveals itself. Just like I said in that story, right? It reveals itself. After a few moments, she recognized this is the behavior her mother did when her father interrogated her after going shopping. Okay, so she sees the story. She sees where this comes from. Oh, this isn't really my thing. I don't really care about this. This is actually my parents' dynamic that I just took on as a kid, and for some reason, right, I saw that happening to my mom and got really defensive or whatever it is, right? So she sees where it comes from, that it's not about what's really happening. Sally chooses not to continue the story and stops. She sees that it doesn't serve her, that it's not hers. It's not even hers to have to begin with. Probably wasn't even her parents to begin with. And stops. She stops. She understands where the story comes from. You don't need to keep telling the story anymore. You know. It's not yours. Let it go. The fears of being attacked, ridiculed, and shamed arises. All right. So this is what happens. Our stories, one of the reasons they're there is to protect us, to keep us safe. So I know for myself, when I'm running massive judgment on something or somebody, I know myself, and that is telling me that there's something about that I'm protecting myself from. I don't want to be contaminated from it. I don't want it to get me. I don't want to become that. I don't want that in myself, right? So when I'm judging, it's revealing not something about the other person, but something about myself. And it's protecting me from that. So it's like, what is this protecting me from? So you can see in this example, being attacked, ridiculed, and shamed is what this story is protecting Sally from. Does this make sense? So one reason we don't want to stop is because we're afraid that if we stop doing that thing, we're going to be vulnerable to whatever that thing was protecting us from. So what does she do? Does she cry? Does she freak out? Does she throw a fit? Does she get angry? Does she create drama? No, she allows them. Allowance. Step 3. She feels the sadness of self-betrayal from having to justify her needs and wants. She feels the sadness of the self-betrayal, right? She's abandoned herself, right? These stories. She's abandoned herself by justifying her needs and wants. Well, who do you think you are to want to go and buy that new dress? Oh, well, I mean, I think I should be able to. I mean, don't you? Do you feel that? It's self-betrayal. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's a dysfunctional thing. Maybe she has a spending issue. Still, it doesn't matter. There's no need to defend or justify. It's like, oh, I'm a shopaholic. Okay. But the self-betrayal is there. So not only are these upper layers, there's these deeper layers of when we buy into these stories for so long, then we have guilt and shame even on top. It's like layer after layer after layer. And so by stopping the one thing, it reveals, right? It's revealed all of these other things that have been happening. She spends a few moments to sit with it without having to rush past it. Very important. So many of us just want to run away from it. Let's get there. Okay, yeah, sure, okay. Shadow. Okay, yeah, accept, allow. Okay, all right. Let's go to the fun part. Nothing happens. You don't get anywhere. It's a scam. So many people out there doing shadow work, emotions clearing, canceling, deleting, releasing, letting go, all of this stuff. Some of it's helpful. Some of it, they miss the whole point. Remember, also in the book, it's not about feeling good. It's about feeling. It's also not about not feeling bad. Right, Darun? Yeah. It's about feeling. So when you're trying to get rid of the feeling and rush past it, you're missing it. It's right here, right? You're missing the treasure. You're missing all of the information, all of the resources. Sally then re-engages with her family, right? It's not about isolating from the world and being a hermit. You come back. You go in, you check in, you feel it, you stop, you make the new choice, and you come back. can do this in a therapy session. You can do it in your meditations at home. You can do it real time. Progressive difficulty there, right? It's a real challenge to do this in real time while we're being triggered. So I suggest doing this in not real time as you work that muscle, as you can get more proficient with it. And is now aware of how her sibling was baiting her into getting defensive. Oh, she realized that she was putting out an energy. She had a loop, right? She had a hook or an attachment point, and her sibling energetically was aware of it, right? You've had this experience where you know somebody's just so bothered by something and you just go, right? You know what, fuck with them. Or someone does that to you. That can be done in a very light, playful way, an innocent, a non-harmful way, all the way up to being violated. We are sending these openings out and signals out. Other people are baiting us, right? You see this in the news, in the culture. All of this bait out there to get anger and violence and reactions. It's a manipulation. So once she was able to clear her distortions, once she was able to see the truth and move past her stories and the triggers that was running her, now she has this clear vision and she can see what was happening in the external space accurately. Before then, she can't see it. When you got all the stuff going on here, you can't accurately see the space around you. You can't determine and discern, is it me or is it them? Just assume it's all you first. Because, why? Because I want you to hate yourself? Because I want you to take everyone else's burden? Because I want to blame you? You should blame yourself? No. It's because the more you can take responsibility of, the more capacity you have to do something about it. You can't get anybody else to do something. You can't change anybody else. So the more that you can own and heal and learn and purify in yourself, the clearer you will be and be able to discern the external, outside environment. She no longer engages in the manipulation or justifies, right? Oh, he's trying to bait me. No, thanks. Nope. She's not reactive anymore. Kindly saying no to their inquiries. Right? No, setting a boundary. What is that? Right? Right there in that sentence. It's all about setting boundaries. Prior up here, justifying her needs and wants. Our needs. So, in about 3 paragraphs, there was a half an hour of data. When you shake your hands, when I want you guys move, that is my perception of the world, right? There's all of that information, all of that data is in a little wiggle of your hand, of your finger, and in a phrase and a thing you say. So when we, in our calls, when we spend 2 hours on one little thing you did or one little thing you said, this is why. There's so much here. This tells you and teaches you and informs you. If you listen to the book, you listen to yourself, you listen to the space. As above, so below. As within, so without. When you start allowing this much data in, you're able to see all of these things. This has taken me 30 whatever, plus the 15 years of work to be able to allow that much data and information in, to be able to go in. It's like a microscope or telescope, right? You see this one little tiny thing here. You zoom all the way in and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole world. There's galaxies, literal galaxies at your fingertips. The cells and the atoms, the molecules, the chemical, what is happening is just, it's just a trip. And so that's what's going on with the information. when you go into the feeling, when you go into your body, when you do these movements, you go through the book, you come on these calls, this plus so much more is what's available to you. You have everything you need. It's amazing when I'm working with clients doing cinesomatics, and just by my invitations or prompts or questions, what they discover themselves, their body reveals so much. They have, you have, I have, we all have the answers within us. We've heard this before, and we've heard it so much it's cliche and trite and mostly bullshit for so many people, because they're like, if I have all the answers, how come my life sucks and I don't know anything? You're not listening. You're not looking, right? It's there. We just sometimes need help to see it, but it's there. My job here isn't, a lot of people just say, well, just tell me how to move. Well, what's the movement? What's the right way to do it? And that's not what it's about. It's not about becoming like me, God heaven forbid, or anybody else. It's about listening to yourself and discovering that you have the entire universe within inside of you. The answers are there. Well, also the paradox, right? The essential external. It's really hard to do it when we're narcissistic and only looking at ourselves. So this comes to the esoteric, spiritual aspect, right? As within, so without. Also, we are all one, right? We came here to separate, to experience ourselves through the reflections and refractions and fractals of everybody else. We get the feedback reflected back to us. We do that so we can know ourselves. But you're it. We're it. So, what are you guys hearing? Did that answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
It's really good. Can you hear me?
Yep, got it.
It's like taking a microscope and using other people as mirrors as well when the stuff comes up, and then getting feedback from them and not reacting and looking into it and just feeling into it. And then when the time passes, you've seen it from a different, you felt it, you haven't, and it's transmuted something. And then you realize this program has been running me for so long. Why have I reacted like that? And just doing it in a new way to just feel it. It's crazy how it just changes everything. It's beautiful.
Imagine doing something in a new way and it changes everything. I mean, it's so simple, it's so obvious, but it's just, for some of us, it just seems so foreign. I'm like, what do you mean do it in a new way? I only know how to do it the ways I've already done it. Speak, Darun. I can feel it.
Yeah, I'm just slowly trying to come in. No, it's really interesting, Daniel. Like, I think we go into this programming and you recognize it. And I think one of the biggest things I struggled with was when Andrew mentioned, like, to have that awareness that that emotion is actually mine. And I could not make that distinction, right? And it was always, just say for the girl in the story that she's getting very defensive, it's whoever's actually attacking me's fault for this emotion. But I never actually made that distinction that that emotion was mine. It's like something bad was happening, you're making it bad, and that's all I knew. And it was really, really hard to break through that. And I think that awareness is just really, really, really important. The critical first step that to make the distinction, hang on, that emotion's all mine. And that's mine and in. And then once you have that responsibility and ownership of the emotion, then we can actually start to go to the next stuff. But that was really, really hard for me just to even get to that first step of, hang on, that awareness of my emotion. That's actually me. Someone else is doing it, but it's triggering me. Um, and I think I took for granted that, hang on, we need to have the entire 5 steps. And, in that story, you've got all these 5 steps in there, Andrew. And it was just like, why aren't I getting it? And I couldn't even get to that first step of, hang on, the awareness is, this emotion is mine. And now that it's mine, now I can actually start to do something about it. Um,
Yeah, that's that acceptance, that responsibility piece. Yeah.
right.
You can't do anything about it if it's not yours. That's
Mm.
that's why responsibility is so important. It's not about self-blame. It's saying, "Oh, I'm responsible for and to this. Well, that means I can do something about it. Because if I'm not, and it's somebody else's, I can't do it. You can't go over. I mean, you could, but you really can't go over in somebody's house and start changing things. You'd probably get shot or arrested or something. You know, unless you're just cleaning their house spontaneously. I mean, I guess you could, but right. So if it's not ours, we have no ownership over it, and only things that we can own are ours to change.
And
And you
it's
can.
sometimes being triggered. Sorry,
Yeah,
go.
I was going to say, you can also do this at scale, um, as far as vision, right? So you have people that take responsibility for huge problems that aren't necessarily theirs. Right? This is the very high level of functionality that a lot of entrepreneurs have. This widget or this problem wasn't theirs. They didn't cause it, but they take ownership of it, and then they start creating innovation, right? It's not Elon Musk's fault that we're not on Mars, right? That we're only on one planet. He didn't do something that said, "Oh, I crashed the atmosphere," or whatever, right? It wasn't his fault, but he took responsibility, and he says, "Well, if this is going to happen, I'm going to own it." And then he started, building rockets and all this stuff. Again, you can like them or not, but you can see the example that he's taken responsibility for things. All these people, all these innovators, they take responsibility for bigger and bigger things, and then they can do something about it. If you just said, "Oh, it's NASA's fault, it's NASA's job," we'd just still be waiting around, right? That's a victim that says, "Oh, well, they'll take care of it. The government will do it." Yeah, good luck. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I think when the initial concept of taking ownership was for taking ownership for things outside of me and not within me. And that's where I tripped up. And I think I'd wager a lot of people trip up because we don't take ownership of our own emotions, so we try to control what's outside of us. Right. And so, yeah, we're like, everyone said, take ownership, take responsibility, but we're taking ownership and responsibility of the wrong thing, it feels. Like it has got to start on the inside. Um, or at least for me, like, just like, okay, you can take ownership for things that's outside of me, but I'd try to control that without properly taking ownership of what's inside. And so in again, drawing back to the example of what's in the book, I wouldn't be taking that wouldn't be instinctively what taking ownership was for me. It'd be completely different. It would be more like controlling the people outside of me, taking ownership of the situation, taking control of the
Owning,
situation.
right? Controlling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, controlling rather than, and that would be my conceptualization of what ownership was. Like own the situation, control the situation. I've conflated the two,
Yeah,
as
that
opposed to,
domineering, tyrannical.
mm,
Yeah.
and that's the only way I know how because it's so beyond my this paradigm of taking ownership of what's inside of myself and this emotion. I don't have awareness of it. How can I take ownership of something I don't have awareness of? So yeah, it's just like all these little things that we think we know what they actually mean. It's just it's a completely different way of knowing.
Would you like to share what you discovered today on our call?
I'm not reluctant to share it. I just don't know where to start. It's
Just talk about the forest. Making a new choice. That's it.
yeah. I think choice was really hard for me. I never realized that. Well, making a new choice, and Andrew often says that make a choice, make a new choice. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, there are a limited amount of choices that we can make in this life, right? And every day, I just feel like you can't just leave your job and then go do something else. Well, apparently that's a choice, but it's not available to me. Like, I can't do that. We've got all these responsibilities, commitments, um, all these things that we need to do, that we should do. And for me, it's always felt like it's just something you have to do. There's no choice behind that. Um, and so part of the learnings just that today was just that I want to make all these other choices, but there's a big part of me that's just saying that's bullshit. That's not a choice. And there's this story about those are not valid choices in the world. There's only like essentially there's only three options of how to do everything or anything today. And they were just that. They were options. They weren't choices. There was like someone else present me the options, tell me what the options were, and I'll do my analysis and choose those options. And they weren't really choices. So when we talk about choices, it didn't feel like choices to me. They never ever felt like any choices to make, and making new choices was just outside the realm of possibilities of what could be done. And so whenever learning anything new and um, making a new choice and acting a different way, I just could not do it because that wasn't available to me. I didn't feel like it was available to me. It just felt like, no, just tell me like these are the three things I should do. Like how they said like you can be the successful person, you can be this type of person, you can be that type of person. Those were the choices that are available to me. And to be anything else and to do anything else was completely foreign. And even this example with the girl in the book, it would be like I'd never realized that that was a choice available to me to actually take ownership of my own emotions and um, even do something different. So for me, it just felt like, yeah, there was all these things that we could talk about here, but I was missing something fundamental to even action those things that I realized. Um, I'm not sure whether I'm making any sense. It just feels like I'm trying to connect a lot of different things. Does anyone feel like I'm making sense to them?
Then what was the next step you took? So once you realize this,
It was just about making the choice to actually step into that bullshit story that I made. Like, and that was the choice itself. I didn't know what a choice was, and so I had to be handheld into like this is actually a choice. And taking that step into the story and learning more about the story was a choice. And it was interesting because my conceptualization of choices was either do this, do that, and it didn't actually involve a choice of going inside and understanding what's inside and trusting that out of that place, choices would be made and choices could occur and choice. It was just like this entire different realm of what choices could be. And for me, it was just a very, very curated sense of what choices you could actually do in your life. And stepping into that story of everything else being bullshit and anything that I ever wanted was bullshit. And, having the dream that wasn't really the normative version of what a dream is in what I see on TV and what I see in the world and what my parents passed on to me and what's around in work, that was all bullshit. Like these are the only type of dreams you're allowed to
it
have. These are the only choices you can have, and
yeah.
that's all you can ever do. Choose that.
What
And
was
so then,
what was the metaphor? Because when you did cinesomatics, you did movement through all of this. I think if you just share the metaphor, I think people can relate to that better.
right. It felt like making a choice was going into the unknown, going into the woods. And so it felt like I've always been in this little village, this town that, and there's this massive chasm, this ground towards the woods, and making a new choice felt like going into the complete unknown. Whereas all these little choices I could make within this little village, um, this little town, and I knew everything, and all the choices had to be known. And new choices was just so far off and in the unknown. There's so much terror around making those choices. And as I started getting deep inside it, I just realized, holy crap, it wasn't anyone else stopping me making the choice. It was actually me. And I was putting myself in my own prison. And that prison wasn't to keep people out and to protect me. It was actually to stop me getting out. And it was like a mental asylum. A literal prison. Just the barbed wires were facing inwards. Everything was just facing inwards. So I wouldn't get out. And that was under my mistaken belief that it was to protect me. Protect me from myself getting out. Something like that. Something convoluted. But it wasn't
Into
anyone
that
else. It
terror.
was me.
Yeah, into that unknown.
Mm.
And so in the woods, what was the big breakthrough you had about you got into the woods? Well, just talk about that. How did you go from the village into the woods?
Yeah, we just started taking by steps and just taking one step and being really, really uncertain. And then taking the next step and hang on, I'm still around. I'm still here. And then taking the third step, I'm like, where am I? I'm taking 3 steps out. I thought I would be completely annihilated, and I'm still here. And then realizing that there's all this bullshit that I've been telling myself about choices and about going into the unknown and taking new steps and doing new things. And I started to run into that story, and just taking the step to the woods was going into that story, and that bullshit story was bullshit. And I was just like, holy shit! It was just,
There's a lot of shit here.
yeah, it's just poo all around.
Yeah.
And it was just realizing how much crap there is and how much crap I've been like that's stopping me from my own life, and that's actually been constructed by myself.
And there was the just for brevity here, the thing that I learned from watching you go through this was into the woods. It was this place of the unknown, right? Of new choices. And when you get there, if you're on a path already and you see choices and options, it's not your path. It's not yours. Somebody else's did that. That is not new, right? And so getting into the forest and being like, wait a minute, I don't know what the choices are here. Exactly. That was the breakthrough, right? That we are expecting to go into the unknown of a new choice. And no, that's by definition not how it works. You have to go into the unknown. Nobody knows. It's like, well, what's the new choice to make here? I don't know. You don't know. You have to go into it. You're in a place that no one has ever been before. That's new. Not novel. It's new. That requires going into the unknown. It requires that courage. So it's like, oh, yeah, we don't know, because so many of us wait to know in order to make the new choice. But the choice is to go into the unknown, and then it's going to tell you what's there. Something like that.
Yeah, maybe you went through it rather than me. I'm still integrating everything, so I don't know. It's just I've got to rewatch the videos and understand what happened. But yeah, that sounds a bit more succinct. Thank you, Andrew.
No, thank you. That's what I learned.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah, I think I
it's
just went into the unknown, realizing that I wanted the unknown not to be the unknown, and it's
great.
just paradoxical. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you just summarized it right there.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like wanting to have intimacy without vulnerability. It's like, can we have this like intimacy stuff? This is great, but can we do it without any chance of being hurt? Like that's like the exact definition of vulnerability. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. That was, I mean, you've had a huge day with that. And I think the coolest thing there was all you did was literally in your body. You were just like not yelling at me, but like, what do I do? What is the new choice? What's the new choice? I don't know what to do. What is it here? I'm just like, just take a step. Oh,
Mm.
oh, just. What do you mean? Literally walk into the woods, into the unknown? Yes.
So just for context, everyone, I needed to be handheld through this, so that's fine.
He's a good hand holder.
Mm. Yes, it was enlightening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
But
amazing.
I never realized I was just missing the basics. It felt like I was missing a lot of the basics. And that was what it was like.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
What are you guys hearing? Are you learning anything today? Who's learning something?
It's like going into the unknown and doing it in a different way. I've started to feel and realize that my fear has been so irrational. Like we fear this unknown, and then you do it in another way. And I'm like, what have I been defending? And like you say, that you don't have to defend the truth, but then you have to look at what you've been doing. And I've realized, sure, why are you snapping at me? Why are you so snappy? Dan, you just snapped at me. Oh, you don't see that. You may be the one snapping. So then I go into it and replay the situation in my head and think, sure, a lot of the stuff that I've been feeling, I've been creating. I've been creating it. And then I can change it. And then I laugh at it. And then I go back later to like whatever happened to my husband and say, gee, I'm sorry about that. I did snap at you. He's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But I'm like, no, like I'm going to do it differently next time. I thought you were snapping at me. He's like, no, I snapped back. But you were like, what? Snappy. So it's to realize that. And then like you said to me, do things, fuck it all up, do it in a different way, you know? So I was like, okay, I'll just try things differently. And then putting myself in a place of vulnerability and saying things that I wouldn't usually say. And then to feel that vulnerability and feel that weakness. And the response is not what you think it'll be either. It's like people respond like beautifully to it, you know, they tend to love you more. I'm like, what is this upside down world? It's like really amazing. You know, it's not what you think it is. And once we get past these irrational fears, I'm like, hey, dragon, hey, cool. There's something there, you know.
Well, I think you just, not I think, that was a really great example, again, of Sally, right? Of stopping, making a new choice, owning it, going in, doing something different. I mean, it's that simple. You say, oh, okay, well, let me try something different. And sometimes you do something different and it's worse. Sometimes you do something different and it's a lot better. It's more functional. Sometimes it's worse, but you have fun with it, right? You're like, well, that really did not work, but that was fun. Well, then something worked because that fun is probably better than the misery of trying to be perfect and doing it right. And then you just do this enough and you're like, oh my God, you can't fuck it up. Oh. But that energy is very different than someone trying to be perfect, right? Or trying to bypass and say, oh, I can't do anything wrong. It's a very different energy, very different embodied energy, even though the wordage is the same. So what's been happening since you've been fucking it all up and not trying to be perfect? I mean, every week we hear you're having breakthroughs.
It's incredible because it's just, I've realized I've abandoned myself for 38 years and now I'm starting to feel, and just the realization of I've made the ghouls, I've made the dragons, and I've created so much suffering for myself. And now I get to choose not to suffer. It's really such a beautiful gift. It's like just the glue that it's just the connective tissue that's changed everything is the feeling. And taking ownership and stopping myself. I think stop, shut the fuck up, feel. Because it does feel painful to feel these things. I'm like, but I see it as a mirror. Okay, I think he's reacting. What in me am I trying to defend? What am I trying to avoid? What is here? And we think that by avoiding, it actually makes it so much bigger than is necessary.
Anybody experience that? By avoiding the thing, it just gets you the thing, probably usually worse than confronting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
David's
and
like, yeah.
When you're more vulnerable, then people respond differently. I used to think they would think I'm weak. And it's not that way. And something softens inside them.
You give them
beautiful
permission
because
that they don't give themselves. Yeah.
So it's changing inside of me. And I've always known that I can't change other people. I can only change me. So, but I'm feeling it. And then now people around me are changing, which is so bizarre. It's like, have I been creating the stuff with other people? Yes. By this illusion of perfection, I'm like so ready to go into the shit, I'd rather take the shit because behind that feeling of annihilation, because it does feel painful, but it's just a feeling and the feeling changes.
Well, careful. It's not just a feeling. Right? Yeah. It's just that just, right? That just. It's a certain diminishment of the feeling. But that feeling is what's informing you, right? It's that feeling.
It's everything.
In your relationship with that feeling. Yeah.
So it's cool. It's very cool. Thank you.
Super cool. Thank you. Who else is learning something? We'll go over time a little bit if you guys want to share what you're learning.
I just wanted to ask a question, but it's sort of a reiteration of what I'd asked 2 weeks ago. Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Yeah.
Is this just a quick check-in? Is this relevant to what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think it's about sort of the feeling of the unknown.
Okay.
And the.
Go for it.
I think it's relevant. I'm not entirely sure.
We'll find out.
But it's at the very beginning of the book, you write. Actually, it might not be entirely relevant, but you write about a direct experience of the divine, if I'm not entirely wrong. Or am I mistaken?
What's the question? Yeah, sure. What's the question?
But is that something that you've experienced? And just going back to the dark night of the soul, it's a little bit convoluted. It's not entirely clear. But
yeah, let's do that next time. That feels
okay,
like it's taking the energy.
But just at the very beginning of the session, you talked about the dark night of the soul and how it's supposed to feel annihilating, going to the unknown. But how long? I mean, it's a bit of a silly question, but how long is it supposed to last for? I mean, is it something you can
There is
quantify?
no supposed to. It's going to
Right.
last however long you're going to fight it for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can feel the energy behind it. You know, you're still in this fear of surrendering to it, because you don't want it to last forever.
But can I ask you? I mean, uh, judging by the clients that you've had, does it last for?
About 60 years.
All life is suffering.
You're going to say that it's a choice, right?
You tell me. So let's have you come up with a concrete question for next time, and we'll dive
Okay,
into
sure.
this.
Sure.
So I think it's a great question. It's just pulling us out a little bit
Okay,
of
sure.
where we were
Yeah.
going. So just you can put it in on the school page, and we can have a list of questions. We can start off with
Okay.
that next time, or in 60 years. Hannah, Neva, David, Megan.
Everyone, I'm going to drop. Have a lovely session, and I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
I had an interesting revelation as I was listening to all this, and that I've had a hard time working through this process in real time and not back in the lab at home when I'm all by myself. And I realized that a lot of in my growing up experience, the taking ownership was about taking ownership for the action, regardless of the emotion. And so I was kind of having a lot of memories come back of myself taking ownership for things, like actions, and having that be feeling like I had to disregard or eliminate my emotion in that in order to do the right thing, if that makes sense. Um, and I was just thinking maybe that's connected to, I feel like I have a hard time getting to what I'm actually feeling when I'm trying to take ownership of things. And maybe it's because I'm so much more associated with the action.
And what's the action usually? What's the quality of it? Is it an avoidance? Is it trying to get something done, accomplish it? You know, what's the quality of the action?
You mean currently or like in the past?
Generally, you know, there's probably a pattern. Is there energy of, you know, are you joyous? And you're just like, great, let's do this. Is it stressful? Is it intense? Do you feel pressure from the outside? You know, is it something that only the men or the women do? You know, what's the quality of this?
Of the action that would be taking ownership for?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
That you're doing instead of the emotion.
Sorry, bye everyone. I have to go. Bye. Sorry.
Probably it's some sort of stress-induced action of a hurrying or something like this.
Okay. So what did you learn? What's different now? after this call.
Um, I'm not sure. It's not about the action, but it's about the emotion underneath that I just feel really disconnected from.
Okay. Anything else? All right. David, final words?
I would say I'm
Anybody?
still in the abyss of things, but I do have some small breakthroughs. Um, just I think really focusing on trusting myself, because I realize how much I depend on my intellect for protection and safety. I mean, I see it during this meeting, how much I just wander off and to my own
Come
thoughts.
back. Yeah.
I've been focusing on the smaller things, just not so much like the big issues that I see in myself.
Yeah, let's see if you can also move past that distinction, big and small. You'll see people here, my clients, that has worked with them for 2 years, and they have a realization of something so small, like you just shared, you know, Darun just shared, about choice. It seems small. It doesn't seem like you just unlocked a galactic mystery, but that one thing has just, set in motion so many different things. So it's kind of our ego that says little or big. Now there's an intensity, right, of emotion behind certain things, so that's real. It's like, ooh, just be mindful of those kind of labels. They can yeah, they can just trick you. Anything else?
And the only other thing I want to say, for me, the stopping is actually kind of like what starts things for me, as far as like when I'm in my head or in my intellect, that's when I feel really like just stifled and just stiff in general. So when I stop that, that's when I feel like I'm just, I guess, more alive or more expressive in general.
So what does that tell you? It tells you you're normally doing what? Definition A or definition B of stopping?
Yeah, the not the
Yeah,
real
that one,
stopping.
right. Yeah. Yeah, so when you stop something and it feels like something just starts for you, it tells you that you just stopped the stopping, right? You ceased the plugging up, the preventing, the suppressing. Because you're not adding, you're not doing more, and you're going forward. You're stopping something. You're removing. It's like a dam, right? There's a water, and you remove the dam, there it goes. You didn't start flowing water. What you actually did was stop the dam. It's a very important distinction because one's going to take you closer to your true self and free up energy, and the other one's going to take you away from it and use up energy. So great. All right, I know you wanted to say something. Yes, you. Smiles over there.
Who?
Go for it. Yes, go
Me?
for it. You know.
Okay. Yeah. I have been experiencing a lot of lessons in real time recently. And there's a couple things that relate really directly to what we were just talking about. When it comes to taking ownership for what is within rather than trying to control the external reality. That's something that came up for me a lot in a big way recently. And I realized how I couldn't, for a long time, I really couldn't take ownership of what was within because I was so disconnected from my feelings, first of all, and then what I think is like very connected to the feelings, or like maybe even underneath the feelings, is like a need, like a core need of mine. And I just like didn't even know what I was feeling, and I didn't know what I was needing. And I was really raised in an environment where I was not encouraged to tune into my own needs and my own feelings. And I just continued that pattern throughout my adult life of choosing not to tune into my feelings, choosing not to tune into my needs. And so recently I was around someone and I was feeling incredibly self-conscious, and I was really in my head. I was worried what they were thinking about me. And so I ended up having a conversation with them about it, multiple conversations with them about it, but they told me, they're like, you've said this multiple times, like this is something that is coming up for you again. And they're like, can I support you? Do you need something? Is there something that I can do? And I was just like speechless. I was like, what are my needs? Like, can you do something for me? What? Like, I was just like, I just had this moment of clarity where I was like, I am so disconnected from how I'm feeling and what I'm needing in this moment that I can't even articulate what I need, and I can't get the help. Therefore, like, I am going to be feeling isolated and alone because I can't even ask
And
for
like your
help.
needs aren't being met, right? Yeah.
My needs are not being met. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's because, like, yes, I have this, upbringing and things that contributed to me having a hard time connecting to my needs. But now I'm like, oh wow, now this is my job. Now it's like my turn to get my needs met by asking for help, asking for support, by knowing what I need. And yeah, that was the really pivotal moment for me where I was like, I literally was like, can you just tell me that you like me? Can you just tell me that you like
Yeah.
being around me? And then they did. They told me, yeah, Neva, I really enjoy being around you. I really love spending time with you. I think you're a really cool person. And I was just like, oh my God, I needed to hear that. Thank you so much. And like, I had that experience of getting my needs met, and it was amazing. And I was like, wow, I had to ask. Uh,
And did you feel ashamed for asking? Did you feel guilty?
Yeah, it was so difficult for me. It was like, I felt like my throat was just constricting as I was trying to ask for what I wanted. It was
Yeah.
so difficult. So that was only like a week and a half ago, and I've just been like reflecting on that a lot, and just I'm like, wow, I have work to do for sure. And and it also ties in really nicely with stopping, because with this particular interaction with this person, I was noticing how much I wanted them to like me. And I was so nervous around them. I felt so nervous around them all the time because I was just trying to figure out, like, oh, what are they gonna like? Who do I need to be in order to get him to fall in love with me? Basically.
Right.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I was like so tense, and I was like analyzing everything that I was doing and I felt like I was trying to be something or someone, and I wasn't just like flowing and relaxed. And I was like, okay, I need to stop. I need to stop trying to be who I think he wants me to be. Like, what would happen if I just let go of trying to get him to like me? And it was that situation where when I stopped that, it was like immediate flow, immediate relief. Not to say, oh yeah, he fell in love with me and we're together now. And it's like I was still, kind of anxious, and I still had moments of insecurity, but like this deeply,
Pressure. Yeah.
yes, this deep relief. I could breathe again. And I was like, oh, it just felt really good. And I felt more authentic.
And that's the funny thing too, is that he probably doesn't even want somebody who's doing those things that you're inventing in your head that you think that he wants.
Right.
And I mean, I've had people where it's like, I think Danielle, that happened to you. It's like you were trying to be something, and it's like your partner doesn't even want that kind of person.
Trying to be him.
Yeah.
No.
He doesn't want to make love to himself, right? You know, another man. And then the second thing is, if he does fall in love for you, if he does fall in love with you for those things, he's fell in love with an image, and it's not even you. And so you're never going to be fully seen, right? Because you've put on a mask to be lovable. And it doesn't matter how many people love the mask, we won't have access to you. That's why that's intimacy, or the opposite of intimacy. So it's like, even if we get everyone to like us, it's the ultimate form of self-betrayal, self-abandonment. They fell in love with an image. It's not real. So you have people that are in love with something that's unlovable and unreal. So they're not going to get what they need from it, and then you're not, because it's not even you. But it's crazy. We think that, right? Because we're afraid of rejection, and we're desperate or scarce or afraid or whatever it is. And it's like, being liked for a mask certainly feels better than being hated for a dysfunctional self or something. Until you heal all of that, and then you have self-love, and then all of that stuff goes away. And so this is part of that, the needs. It's like you're in the process of saying, oh my God, none of these needs are met. I didn't even know I had these needs. I start asking for them, all of the stuff. And then as you do that and you go through the process, you say, oh, well, I'm really empty and desperate for being told I'm likable. What's underneath that? And then that helps you see what there can be healed. And then you get to the point where it's like, oh, that's all healed. And I like to hear it sometimes. If I don't, that's okay. But yes, pamper me, praise me, but you own it, right? You have fun with it. What I just did is play. It's owning it. It's owning something that seems weak or shadowy. But you can see that I'm not really insecure about it. And so you can do those things when you're not insecure, because you're filled inside. And then you get to play. You get to choose, like, oh, I want someone to say those things to me. I want someone to do those things to me. I want someone that I can do that with. And then after you get through there, then you can really see what your true needs are versus your wants and preferences and things like that. You say, oh, this is a real need. Oh, that one wasn't a need in the grand picture of things. I needed it then because I was so, lacking. But it was actually an insecurity. It was actually a wound. It was actually, something that needed to be healed, rather than a need. And so that's that like whole journey. And then you realize, no, this is a need. Nope, I need this. Nope, this is certainly like respected and loved. Yep, that's a need, and I'm okay with that. And you're not providing that, and so goodbye. It's okay. Thank you. Or whatever it is. So it's a beautiful, beautiful doorway into this process for you.
Yeah. Definitely.
Thank you for sharing. All right, we're half an hour over time. I'm going to call it there. But I think everybody shared what was needed. I can feel people getting certain insights and making some connections. So thanks for sticking around a little bit longer. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.